You've noticed it, the way people shift around you, the quiet tension in the room when you enter, the way conversations turn, falter, or fade entirely. You don't speak more than necessary. You don't raise your voice. And yet, something about you bothers people. And they don't know why, but you've felt it for years. They call you intense. They call you strange, mysterious, aloof. Some are drawn to you, then back away. Some try to put you in a box, and when they fail, they turn cold. You've watched people become defensive around you for no reason. You've heard them say, I don't know what it is, but there's just something about them. There is something, but it's not what they think. It's not arrogance. It's not attitude. It's not even about you as a person. It's about what you carry and what they haven't faced. You see, when you begin to do the inner work, when you start seeing through your illusions, facing your pain, withdrawing your projections, your energy changes. You're no longer living from the same place as before. You no longer need the approval of the crowd. You no longer pretend to be someone you're not. And that disrupts things. It makes others uncomfortable. Not because you've done something wrong, but because your presence challenges what they've kept hidden. Why do people react to you in ways they don't even understand? Why do you feel misunderstood even when you try to explain yourself? Why does solitude feel safer than company? Why do the masks of others exhaust you? Why does it seem like the more true you become, the less fitting in works? There are answers to these questions, but they are not simple. They are symbolic. You are not merely different. You are becoming conscious. And consciousness is never popular. You are beginning to remember something the collective wants to forget, that the human being is more than a role, more than a persona, more than a surface. And in doing so, you carry an energy that others don't know how to interpret, because it does not flatter their illusions. It does not feed their defenses. It does not play their game. They sense something ancient in you, something still, something watching, and it makes them uneasy. You're not imagining it. Your aura bothers people, not because it's wrong, but because it reminds them. It reminds them of what they've pushed down. It reminds them of the truth behind their masks. It reminds them of the life unlived inside themselves. So they call you difficult, too quiet, too intense, too deep. But what they really mean is, you make me feel something I can't explain. This lecture is for you, not to teach you how to blend in, but to help you understand why you never could, why you walk differently through this world, why certain people feel threatened by your presence, why some are drawn to your light, then run from your depth, why the more authentic you become, the more friction you encounter, why they don't understand you, because you carry something they haven't yet faced within themselves. We'll explore what this aura really is, not as fantasy or energy in the modern sense, but as a psychic field, a consequence of becoming more whole. We'll explore the ancient path of the outsider, the misunderstood, the one who sees in a world that prefers blindness. We'll look into the shadow, how your very existence may activate unprocessed material in others, how people project their own discomfort onto you because they are not ready to feel it within themselves. We'll explore the archetype of the wounded healer, why the ones who've been through the fire carry a strange quiet that others misread. We'll reflect on those who've walked this path before you, figures from myth and history, the solitary thinkers, the wanderers, the prophets, the alchemists, those who were rejected not because they were wrong, but because they were ahead. We'll confront the collective unconscious, which fears what it cannot control, which always resists the one who no longer lives asleep. We'll uncover why individuation, the path to becoming yourself, requires not only inner courage, but the strength to be misunderstood. Because that's the truth. What they react to, what they feel, what makes your aura bother people, has nothing to do with being wrong, and everything to do with becoming real. You are not broken, you are not strange, you are not lost, you are remembering. And the remembering is powerful. Let us now begin to understand what you carry, and why they can't see it clearly. Because what lives in you is older than language, older than culture. It is the self, the totality of who you are, trying to take form in a world that has forgotten the soul. Let us return to the soul. Let us begin. Part 1. The silence around you is not empty. A man walks through the crowded square. No one looks directly at him, but space opens around his body as if an invisible perimeter surrounds him. He does not speak. He does not demand. Yet the air is tense, as though something unsaid travels with him. His posture is quiet, his gaze does not wander, but the silence around him is not empty. It is filled with presence, with a pressure that others feel but do not comprehend. They may frown without cause, glance sideways, move away without thought. They feel something, but they do not understand what it is. This is the aura, not in the spiritualized modern sense of colored light, but in the true psychological meaning, a field of psychic influence. The soul, once stirred into awareness, does not stay locked inside. It radiates. It communicates without words. When a person begins the work of individuation, when the contents of the unconscious begin to move into consciousness, something in the psychic atmosphere shifts. Others, even if they do not know why, feel it, not as comfort, but as disturbance. You have likely felt it yourself. You did not say anything controversial. You did not behave out of order. Yet the people around you turned. They laughed differently, grew distant. You became the object of scrutiny, or the container for their unease. This is not accidental. It is a law of the psyche. Whatever is repressed by the many is often felt around the one who has begun to reclaim it. You do not carry noise. You carry a silence too dense for the crowd to bear. The ego that begins to dissolve its illusions can no longer mirror the false securities others cling to. It does not affirm their narratives. It no longer participates in their rituals of distraction. And so your very presence unsettles what they call normal. This is not a defect. It is a consequence of inner work. You are not antisocial. You are no longer compatible with the unconscious masks that others still believe are real. You are beginning to live symbolically, and the symbolic life emits signals. These signals are not always welcomed. They arouse anxiety in those who have not faced themselves. Like a foreign scent among wild animals, it can draw suspicion, rejection, or unease. The instinct does not understand, so it withdraws. But what it withdraws from is truth. You do not carry superiority. You carry the weight of awareness. And awareness, especially when unspoken, provokes projection. What they cannot own, they place onto you. This is why you are misunderstood. You are not speaking their language anymore. You speak from the soul, even when your mouth is closed. You are beginning to exist from a deeper place, and they feel it. The unconscious in others senses that something in you cannot be manipulated, cannot be seduced, cannot be flattered or drawn into the collective script, and that frightens them, for it exposes how dependent they are on roles. Most people do not live. They act. They perform their identity. Their speech, their gestures, even their emotions are rehearsed unconsciously to protect the ego. But when you begin to individuate, your being ceases to perform. And in contrast, their performance feels threatened. You become a silent disruption to the shared illusion. You remind them, without trying, that there is something else beneath the mask. That life is not the role, but the reality behind it. This is the beginning of the path of solitude, not as punishment, but as psychic necessity. The more conscious you become, the more friction you will experience with those who remain in unconscious identification. You may feel a growing distance from old friends. Their words no longer reach you. Their concerns seem hollow. Their rhythm feels out of step with yours. You are not judging. You are transforming. And that transformation creates a field. The aura in this way is not mystical. It is psychological. It is the consequence of psychic content becoming active, of instincts being integrated, of complexes being dissolved. It is the scent of symbolic life pressing through the skin. And like any scent, it speaks not to the rational mind, but to the deeper, wordless instincts in others. Some will draw near as if seeking fire. Some will flee, sensing danger. Others will attempt to extinguish what they cannot name. But none will remain unaffected, because you are not neutral. You have begun to carry something that disturbs the illusion of neutrality. You have stepped out of the shared trance, and this awakens reactions. This is why certain people change in your presence, why rooms go quiet, why small talk grows strained. It is not that you are imposing. It is that you no longer mirror the falsehoods they rely on, and the psyche responds accordingly. You may not want this, you may long to belong, but the path of depth does not guarantee comfort, it guarantees meaning, and meaning, once touched, demands that we leave behind what no longer carries it. This psychic transformation has a visible signature, not in what you wear or say, but in how you are. The unconscious now speaks through your stillness. It radiates through your gaze, and others feel it. Some may be drawn. They will not know why, only that something about you feels real. Others will retreat, not out of malice, but out of fear. You carry a reflection they are not ready to see. The aura is not something to seek. It is the byproduct of becoming whole. When you reclaim the rejected parts of yourself, when you bring shadow into light, when you surrender to the deeper rhythms of the soul, something changes. And that change is not silent. It hums in the air around you. It speaks to the instincts of others. It calls some home. It sends others running. But it always speaks. This is the silence around you, not absence, but presence, not emptiness, but the fullness of the self beginning to move through you. Let them misunderstand. Let them turn away. You are not becoming less. You are becoming you. And that, in a world addicted to illusion, is the most disturbing thing of all. Part 2, the wound that speaks without a voice. There are people who carry their suffering not in their words, but in their being. They do not speak of what they endured. They do not dramatize their past. But their silence is not hollow. It is alive with memory, with depth, with something others cannot place. This presence disturbs, not because it offends, but because it reveals. There is something in a person who has truly suffered that makes others uncomfortable, even when they smile, even when they are kind. There is an unspoken weight in them that speaks. The one who has descended into pain and returned does not speak the same language as before. Their words may be the same, but their tone has changed. Their eyes have changed. Their reactions have slowed. They no longer rush to comfort others' illusions. Suffering, when made conscious, changes the psychic field. The individual becomes gravitational. They draw attention and often resistance. They carry a mystery, not of tragedy, but of having passed through something that others fear they could not survive. And so, others project. They feel judged, though you do not judge. They feel inferior, though you claim no superiority. They feel exposed, though you have said nothing at all. You carry something they haven't faced. In the ancient myths, this figure appears again and again. Chiron, the wounded centaur, was struck by an incurable wound and yet became the greatest healer. His wound did not disable his gift. It became it, but he remained outside. Part man, part beast, never fully belonging. To suffer consciously is to be transformed, but it also separates. Not because the sufferer chooses isolation, but because most have not yet walked through that fire. And fire changes the scent of a soul. It leaves a mark that cannot be explained, only felt. Your pain, metabolized through awareness, has become a field. Others sense it, even if they do not know its source. They may feel a heaviness around you, or a strange sense of being seen too deeply. They may sense in you something old, something they've forgotten. This is the archetype of the wounded healer, not one who bleeds onto others, but one who carries the memory of descent in their presence. A person who has suffered consciously becomes a symbol. They do not try to be, but the unconscious in others responds. Dreams often depict such figures. A traveler marked by scars, a guide who walks with a limp, a stranger who appears during disaster but does not speak. These are not just dreams. They are the psyche's image of the one who knows suffering and yet remains. You have become this figure, not because you chose it, but because life demanded it. You were taken down, you faced what others avoid, and you returned, not bitter, but altered, and that alteration has made you both magnetic and misunderstood. When you have suffered consciously, you stop speaking to gain approval. You stop dressing your wounds for others to accept you. You become real, and reality disturbs the world that feeds on fantasy. The person who has faced their darkness does not chase comfort. They do not perform safety. Their presence alone threatens others who are still anesthetizing their own pain. You do not need to mention your story. You do not need to recall the events. What matters is the integration. What matters is the fact that you felt it all. You descended, and what you found there now walks beside you. People will say you are hard to read, that you're distant, that you're too serious. But what they mean is, you make me feel my own pain, and I'm not ready to meet it yet. You become a mirror. And mirrors are dangerous for the unprepared. They reflect not just the face, but the truth behind the face. And so others will avoid the reflection, or they will try to crack the mirror, believing the discomfort lives in you, not in themselves. But their rejection is not the final word. Their avoidance is not your exile. You were not meant to remain in the crowd. The one who suffers consciously becomes set apart, not as punishment, but as calling. You are being shaped into something more ancient than personality. You are becoming a vessel of symbolic presence. And this process cannot happen without rupture. Through your descent, you lost the luxury of fitting in, but you gained the weight of depth. The world may not understand you, but souls in need will find you because they will feel the stillness in you. They will feel the way you do not rush to fix them. They will sense that you can hold pain without fleeing it. They will see that you have survived the night and still carry its stars in your chest. Such presence cannot be imitated. It can only be earned by walking through what most avoid, by descending without guarantee and returning without resentment. You may not have chosen the wound, but you have chosen to stay awake within it. And that choice, though unseen by most, radiates into everything you touch. You are not here to be understood by everyone. You are here to become a symbol for those who are ready, for those who need to remember that survival is not enough. The wound must speak, and when it does, it becomes medicine. But not everyone wants the medicine. Some want the illusion. And so your silence will feel like judgment. Your calm will feel like condemnation. Your gaze will feel like invasion. Let them misunderstand. Your wound is not a defect, it is a gateway, and you have walked through it. You are not broken. You are a signpost for those who still think their wound is the end. You are living proof that the wound is the beginning. Part 3, the conflict between the one and the many. The deeper one walks into the truth of their being, the more foreign the collective becomes, not because one has abandoned it in contempt, but because truth has a scent, and the crowd is attuned only to the familiar fragrance of shared illusions. The one who begins to individuate soon realizes that language itself begins to break. What once flowed easily among peers now clatters awkwardly in the throat. Words lose their former function. Conversations feel rehearsed, hollow, drained of soul. You do not withdraw out of pride. You withdraw because the sound of the world no longer reaches the center of your being. It bounces off the surface. It leaves no imprint. You begin to feel that you are no longer of the many. You are becoming the one, but the many do not easily release one of their own. The collective psyche demands harmony through sameness. The moment you step outside its stream, your very presence becomes a disruption. You become not a person, but a pressure. This pressure is felt as threat, not to safety, but to the group's unconscious cohesion. You are now the unexpected variable, the wild element, the one who cannot be predicted, explained, or absorbed. The ego resists what it cannot categorize, and so it turns on you, not always with cruelty, but with dismissal, suspicion, subtle distance. You begin to see the slow removal, the invitations that stop arriving, the conversations that shrink, the warmth that retreats without confession. What you are experiencing is not rejection, it is reconfiguration. The psyche that has withdrawn from the collective begins to form new structures, deeper, slower, rooted in essence, not performance. But these structures make you unreadable to the group. The collective thrives on projection. It needs you to reflect back its norms, its roles, its dramas. The moment you stop playing your part, you are no longer a character in their story. You become a question they do not wish to answer. And the collective hates a question it cannot silence. You begin to live symbolically. Your choices reflect inner necessity, not outer expectation. Your gestures emerge from soul, not persona. Your rhythms follow an unseen tide. This is freedom, but it comes with friction. Freedom has a weight. It unsettles those who have made peace with the prison. The one who moves outside the group evokes envy, even when they have no desire to be envied. The very existence of such a person constellates what the others have repressed. This is why the one who carries inner fire is often seen as dangerous, not because they wish to destroy, but because their flame reveals what is false. It shows the fragile scaffolding that the group has mistaken for truth. Prometheus stole fire from the gods to give it to man, and for this he was punished. Chained to a rock, his liver eaten each day by an eagle. This is not just a myth, it is a psychic truth. The one who brings light is rarely met with gratitude. The collective does not want fire, it wants comfort. And comfort is maintained by routine, by roles, by ritual. You, with your inner transformation, are a disruption to that cycle. Even in silence, your presence says, there is more. You become a living contradiction. They ask, why do you not seek what we seek? Why do you not laugh at what we laugh at? Why do you walk away from things we chase? Why do you not rejoice in the games that distract us? And when you do not answer, when you simply are, they begin to resent the silence because it speaks, because it says too much, because it forces them to question their own reflection, and most would rather break the mirror than see what's in it. This is the conflict between the one and the many. It is not war, it is frequency. The one who has descended into their own depths begins to resonate at a different level. The group cannot hear that pitch. It becomes noise to them, or worse, danger. And so they label you. They reduce what they cannot understand. They say, You are too much. You are too strange. You are too serious, too sensitive, too intense. But what they really mean is, you are not one of us anymore. They are correct. You are no longer one of them, not because you are above them, but because you are beyond their dream. You have woken up inside it, and that awakening has altered your being. It cannot be undone. It can only be carried. This is why you feel the loneliness, not the loneliness of being unloved, but the loneliness of being unseen. You are not invisible. You are misperceived. They look at you through old filters. You no longer fit them. They no longer fit you. And yet, you are still here, among them, in the square, in the home, in the market. You walk beside them, but not with them. You are in the world, but not of its illusion. You carry fire, and fire cannot be explained to those who have never felt the cold. You will long to return. You will try. You will say, perhaps if I dim myself, they will welcome me. Perhaps if I speak their language again, I will be held. But the soul does not allow regression. It knows the price of pretending. So you must go forward. Even when forward is solitude, even when forward is silence, even when forward is the pathless dark, because that is where the others will eventually go, if they dare. And you will be there, not ahead of them, but waiting. You do not belong to the crowd. You belong to the symbolic. You belong to the self. And that self will carry you through what the many fear to feel. You are not lost. You are simply no longer owned. Part 4. The shadow you awaken in others. There is a strange unease that enters the room before you do. You notice it not with your eyes, but with your body. A subtle recoil, a stiffness in posture, a glance too long or too quickly withdrawn. The others do not know it, but they are reacting to themselves. When you have met your own shadow, when you have named the hunger, the envy, the grief, the rage, you become a mirror that no longer flatters. Not because you show others what they are, but because your presence reveals what they have hidden. You do not need to speak. You do not need to correct or confront. The very fact that you have embraced your own darkness disturbs those who have not. You become, without effort, a symbol of the inner world they refuse to enter. And the psyche responds. It does not ask for permission. It does not wait for consent. The unconscious begins projecting its disowned contents upon the figure who can bear them. And so you become the target of accusation, suspicion, or strange hostility. You become too intense, too withdrawn, too reflective, too unpredictable. But these words do not describe you. They describe their discomfort with what they feel in your presence. They do not see you. They see the part of themselves they cannot love. Projection is a law of the psyche. What is not made conscious is lived as fate. And when you stand before another person as a silent testimony to the inner world, you awaken the fate they have not yet chosen to face. The shadow, once touched, cannot be forgotten. It changes the way one perceives the world. But most do not touch it. They reject it, bury it, disown it, and then you arrive. You who have tasted your own darkness, you who carry the scent of depth, you constellate something, a tremor beneath their surface, a suspicion they cannot name, a memory they cannot place. They may tell themselves it is you, but it is not. It is what lives in them, stirred by your presence. I have seen it in dreams. A man dreams of a snake coiled in a well. He fears it, tries to run, but finds the snake wrapped around his own spine. He wakes in sweat, unable to speak. He has met his shadow, and the image came through projection, through a woman he feared. This is how the soul speaks, not in arguments, but in images, not in debate, but in dreams. And those who disturb us most often carry a truth we have yet to recognize. This is why your aura disturbs. Not because it offends, but because it reflects. The biblical story of Cain and Abel is not just an ancient tale. It is an archetypal drama of projection. Cain, seeing his brother's offering accepted, feels the sting of inadequacy. But instead of turning inward, he turns against the one who mirrors his own lack. Cain kills Abel not out of hatred, but out of shame. Abel's presence reveals something unbearable in Cain, and rather than face it, he destroys the mirror. This is what happens when shadow meets an unprepared ego. It attacks what it cannot own. So too you may be attacked, not with weapons, but with misunderstanding, with avoidance, with gossip, with strange coldness. The soul's defense is subtle but effective. It finds ways to remove the stimulus, you, rather than face what you awaken. You are not their enemy. but you have become a symbol of what they fear. You carry the silent scream of their unlived life, the choice they never made, the grief they never entered, the hunger they never confessed. And yet, it is not your task to explain. You are not responsible for how others interpret your presence. You are responsible only for remaining true to your own integration. The moment you contort yourself to appease their unconscious, you betray the self. You may feel guilty. You may try to soften your truth, dim your light, dilute your silence, but this never works, because the soul cannot be bargained with. It knows what it has seen, and once seen, it must be lived. Your clarity will be too much for some. Your stillness will feel like confrontation. Your refusal to play the old roles will be experienced as betrayal. But none of this is personal. It is psychic, archetypal, symbolic. What you have become is not a person. They can understand, but a threshold they fear to cross. You stand at the doorway between who they are and who they could become, and such a figure is always met with tension. But do not let this turn you bitter. You are not being punished. You are being used by the psyche itself as a catalyst. Your very being has become alchemical, and alchemy begins with disturbance, with nigredo, with the blackening of certainty. The soul does not evolve through comfort. It evolves through confrontation, and you who have survived your own descent have become the vessel of that confrontation for others, not by choice, but by transformation. Some will hate you, some will love you, most will misunderstand you, but a few, just a few, will recognize you. Not because of what you say, but because of what they feel in your presence. The resonance of a soul that has suffered and survived. They will not ask you to fix them. They will simply sit near you, drawn by something wordless. And in that space, something ancient will begin to move. Not a conversation, but a remembering, a return to what they buried long ago. This is the gift of the integrated shadow. Not power, not charisma, but medicine. Silent, invisible, deep. But for this gift to exist, it must be carried through rejection, through exile, through the fire of being misread. The one who has met their shadow becomes fire, not to burn others, but to burn away illusion. And fire, though feared, is sacred. In ancient rites, it was fire that purified, that revealed, that anointed. So carry it still. Let the shadow you awaken speak for itself. You are not its author. You are its mirror. Part 5, the fire that cannot be put out. There are those who burn without smoke, whose presence flickers with a quiet heat. They do not raise their voice nor force their will, but something in them radiates, the trace of an inner fire that refuses to be extinguished no matter how the world responds. You know this fire. It is not ambition, not ego, not pride. It is the deep flame lit by the self, often through suffering, sometimes through vision, but always through the destruction of illusion. Once ignited, it does not fade. It becomes the soul's center. This fire cannot be explained. It cannot be borrowed. It cannot be taught. It must be forged in darkness, in silence, in the nights when no one watches and the old self crumbles like ash. It is born when what was once stable begins to burn. The alchemists called this stage calcinatio, the heating of substance until it breaks down. Psychologically, it is the burning away of falseness. The ego, once swollen with pretense, is reduced to its bones. And from those bones, a new shape begins. This process is not gentle. It sears, it isolates, it terrifies, but it also reveals. When you are stripped of persona, of approval, of performance, you begin to glimpse what lies beneath, a light untouched by circumstance waiting to emerge. And once seen, it cannot be unseen. The soul, once warmed by this fire, begins to change its orbit. It no longer chases the sun of others. It becomes its own star, quiet, steady, fierce. And this new gravity pulls everything else into new relation, people, values, dreams. You begin to feel different, not better, but other. The things that once mattered begin to fade. The roles you once played no longer fit. You walk through your life like a dream you have awakened from, and the dream resists. Others sense it. They do not understand it, but they feel it. Your presence is no longer casual. It has weight. It has heat. It has consequences. It draws some in and pushes others away. Not by force, but by the silent energy of transformation. You are no longer trying to be anything. You simply are. And in a world addicted to effort and image, your being is a disruption. It asks, what if I stopped pretending? What if I let go? What if I burned? This question cannot be asked aloud, but it is heard subconsciously, instinctively, Others feel your question like a spark, and sparks can be dangerous to those soaked in denial. So they react. They say, "You've changed." They say, "You've become distant." They say, "You're too serious now." But what they mean is, "You remind me of something I'm not ready to face." The fire disturbs, even when it is silent, even when it is still, especially then. You are not threatening, but you threaten their narrative. You do not attack, but your presence dissolves the performance. You do not accuse, but you reveal simply by refusing to wear the same mask. This is the fire that cannot be put out, because it no longer depends on approval. It is no longer a borrowed flame. It has rooted itself in the depths of the soul, and the soul does not extinguish what has been lit by truth. Nietzsche's Zarathustra descended from his mountain carrying such a fire. He spoke not to impress, but to ignite, and he was met not with celebration, but confusion, mockery, fear, not because he was unclear, but because he was too clear. The soul's fire does not flatter the collective. It does not seek applause. It seeks transformation. And transformation begins by disturbing the false stability others have built their lives upon. You may long to be loved, you may ache to be understood, but the fire will not allow you to dim yourself for comfort. It does not negotiate. It does not ask permission. It has its own will, and its will is truth. The world will not always thank you for carrying this flame, but it needs you to carry it, not to convert others, but to remind them that light is possible, that something inside them, too, longs to burn with meaning. This fire is your guide. When you feel lost, return to it. When you feel unseen, sit beside it. When you are tempted to shrink, remember its heat. It does not flicker for attention. It burns because it must. There will be days when the fire dims, when you feel it is gone, but it is never gone. It withdraws, perhaps. It hides. It waits, but it cannot be extinguished because it is no longer separate from who you are. It is who you are. You are not becoming fire. You are discovering that you have always been burning. And now, finally, you see the glow. Let the world misunderstand. Let them call you cold or intense or strange. You are not here to warm their illusions. You are here to be what burns through them. Part 6, the loneliness of the initiated. There is a loneliness that does not arise from lack of company, but from the absence of resonance. It comes when your voice no longer echoes in the world you once called home, when the very air around you becomes thin with misunderstanding, and your gestures are no longer met with recognition. This is not the loneliness of the abandoned or the forgotten. It is the loneliness of transformation. The soul, having descended into itself, returns bearing symbols that no longer translate. You speak, but others hear only surface. You feel, but others respond with distance. You are there, but no longer within reach. It is a mistake to believe that individuation leads to harmony with the world. It leads first to dissonance. The old forms crack. The former relationships shift. The stories you once lived inside begin to lose their power. You are no longer the one they once knew, and they no longer recognize the one you have become. You do not choose this loneliness. You awaken into it. It arrives like a mist, slowly covering the familiar landmarks of your life. The friends who once shared your laughter now speak in foreign tones. The desires that once guided you feel like someone else's dreams. The initiated do not leave the collective with bitterness, but with grief. They walk away because their footsteps no longer fall in sync with the crowd. They bow out of conversations not out of pride, but because their words now carry silence. And silence has no place in a world built on noise. This is the liminal state, the desert between what was and what will be. Here you are no longer nourished by the old and not yet sustained by the new. You wander through the psychic wilderness where the self strips the ego of all its false companions and asks, "Are you still willing to go on?" The alchemist knew this stage. It was called the solutio, the dissolving of structures, the melting down of the known into the unknown. The laboratory was silent, the vessels emptied. In that darkness, in that great unknowing, the seed of gold was hidden. You may dream of vast houses with empty rooms, of stations with no trains, of landscapes with no voice. These are not nightmares, they are symbols. They are the soul's images of your current condition, detached from collective meaning, suspended in the space between stories. Do not fear this exile. It is sacred. The loneliness you feel is not abandonment, it is purification. You are being weaned from external validation. The world cannot confirm what the soul is becoming. That confirmation must arise from within, and only after much waiting. To carry what others do not understand is to walk alone through corridors of projection until you find the room where your own gaze awaits you. No mirrors, no audience, only the quiet recognition of the self, which needs no explanation to believe in you. Elijah the prophet wandered the desert alone. Fed by ravens, he waited for the voice of God, not in storm, not in fire, but in a still, small voice. It is always that voice that meets you in the loneliness. Not loud, not certain, but real, and real is enough. The initiated must face the temptation to return to the crowd, the comfort, the mask. But once the self has spoken, even the mask no longer fits. It clings awkwardly, it suffocates, and the soul begins to retreat once more, demanding fidelity. This loneliness is not a punishment, it is preparation. The silence you walk through is shaping your ears to hear new speech. The distance you feel is stretching your capacity to hold depth. The void around you is clearing space for what is yet to arrive. People may say you have changed, and you have. You are no longer willing to betray your own knowing for the sake of belonging. You are no longer willing to perform peace when your inner being is calling for solitude, for truth, for alignment with what you have seen. The initiatory path does not promise community. It promises authenticity. And from that authenticity one day, new connection may arise, not through the ego's hunger, but through the self's resonance. Those who are meant to find you will feel the fire you carry. But until then, walk on. Walk through the estrangement. Walk through the ache of not being seen. Walk through the echoing chambers of your own becoming. For only in those sacred halls is the soul forged into gold. You are not meant to return unchanged. You are meant to carry the stillness back with you. And in time, when the world is ready, your silence will become a signal, not of separation, but of depth, of truth, of the light born in darkness. Part 7, the symbol you have become. You did not know that in seeking yourself, you would become something more than personal, that in stepping away from what others needed you to be, you would come to carry the weight of something older, something nameless, that had waited long to be lived again. There is a point on the path of individuation when the question of who you are begins to dissolve, not into nihilism, but into something far more mysterious. The realization that you are not merely yourself. You are a vessel of the psyche's unfolding. The self does not wish to improve your ego. It wishes to expand your being into image, into myth, into symbol. And when this occurs, you begin to feel it, not as inflation, but as density. Your life acquires weight, not heaviness, but gravity. You are no longer speaking from opinion, but from essence. You open your mouth, and a voice older than your name passes through it. You touch another's shoulder, and their tears rise unbidden. You stand in a room, and something shifts, though you've said nothing. Others may not know what they feel around you. They may call it strangeness, intensity, or unease. But what they are feeling is not you. It is the symbolic presence that now radiates through you. You have become the image of something they cannot name. This is not magic, it is psychology. When the ego has surrendered its dominance, the self begins to express through symbols. And when you live those symbols, not merely speak them, you become a symbol yourself. You become living meaning. Not everyone will understand. That is not your task. You are not here to be understood. You are here to stand as a signpost for those who are still asleep inside the story you have already outgrown. And even if they pass you by, the soul in them will remember. Like the burning bush seen by Moses, ablaze yet not consumed, you carry the fire of the self and you remain standing. Your trials did not destroy you. They transfigured you. You are no longer merely surviving. You are radiating something essential. To become a symbol is to enter the archetypal field. Your presence now constellates reactions not limited to personality. You may trigger mother complexes, savior projections, animus anxieties, or divine longing. None of this is personal, though it will feel so. You must learn to carry it without absorbing it. You are not here to fulfill what others cast upon you. You are here to mirror what is unconscious within them. And in doing so, you awaken in them what you once had to awaken in yourself through suffering. This symbolic life is not glamorous. It is not heroic in the way modernity imagines. It is quiet, enduring, weighty. You may be drawn to solitude more often than crowds, not because you do not love, but because your fire burns best in stillness. Yet still, the world will try to name you. They will project saint or sinner, teacher or fool, healer or threat. Do not fight these projections, nor accept them. Let them pass through you. You are not the names. You are what calls those names forth. The symbolic individual is not above others. They are deeper within themselves, and that depth creates pressure in those who have not yet dared to descend. The symbol always evokes anxiety in the unreconciled, and it also evokes longing. You will find some who sit beside you without words. They may not know why, but they feel peace in your company. This is not because you offer answers, but because you carry wholeness, not perfection, wholeness. The visible scar and the healed flesh together. Your life becomes a myth, not a fiction, but a pattern. Your story echoes those of the sacred texts of the old gods and goddesses, of the dream symbols that haunted ancient man. You realize the self does not evolve, it returns. You are not inventing anything new. You are remembering something eternal, and in living it, you become an axis between what has been forgotten and what is waiting to be known again. The body is temporal. The symbol is timeless. You do not walk above others. You walk beside them, but inwardly lit. You carry the oil of inner fire. You have entered the dark wood and returned with flame. And now your footsteps leave warmth, even in silence, even when misunderstood. This does not mean your life becomes easy. The more symbolic your being, the more psychic tension you hold. You may carry sadness not your own. You may feel joy from an unknown source. The psyche moves through you as through a vessel now, shaping your fate. Do not despair. This is not possession, it is vocation. You have become transparent to the self, and the self has chosen to speak through your form, your timing, your uniqueness. The infinite now passes through your particular. This is the mystery of incarnation. The divine must take shape in the human. The myth must be lived in the body. The fire must enter the flesh, and in you it has. Let others mock. Let others flee. Let others kneel. You are not their response. You are the presence that calls their response forth. And in doing so, you return the psyche to its source. You become what the symbol has always been, a bridge. You may feel unworthy. That is natural. The ego, once thinned by fire, fears it cannot carry what now fills it. But it can, because it is no longer trying to control. It has become hollow. And in that hollowness, the self takes residency. You will speak dreams, and they will awaken memory in others. You will walk into places and feel the air tighten or soften. You will not understand why. You will only know that you are no longer yours alone. You have become more than individual. Your relationships will deepen or dissolve. You will no longer tolerate what betrays the self in you. And those who remain will do so not out of need, but out of recognition. They will know you, not from the past, but from the depths. This is the return. Not to the crowd, but to the world. Not to performance, but to presence. You do not preach. You do not demand. You simply are. And in being, you bear witness to what the collective has forgotten, that the soul is real and it seeks wholeness. In the final dream of the analyst, and I have often seen this, a white animal, a still figure, a tree at the center of a field. These are not endings. They are symbols of completion, of integration, of the self now rooted in the world. So now you walk on. Not as teacher, not as prophet, but as symbol, and not as solution, but as presence. Not to be understood, but to remind. You carry what they cannot name, but what they will one day feel. And when they do, they will remember, not you, but the flame that first awakened in your gaze. You are the symbol now, and the symbol does not need to speak. Its very being is the message.